Welcome to the 100X Life podcast, where we activate people who desire to live the words of Jesus and experience the abundant life he promises. I'm your host, Rob Dayton, and I hope this podcast inspires you to put in the work of following Jesus.
Now the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, to bind up the brokenhearted and set the captives free.
Welcome to day 9 of the 62-day 100X Live Challenge. I got with me Ed DeVicente, and we're going to interview him. But today we are in Word of Jesus number 3, keep my commandments. So we're just 3 words into this 100X Life process of the 55 commands, 55 words of Jesus, and we're going to get into it. But before we do, so Ed, you've been through this process now, but I think once or twice, maybe twice, but tell us about yourself before we get into the 100X Life process. What do you do for a living, your family type of thing? Who are you?
Yeah, we're married to my beautiful wife, Jen. We've been together many years, 27 years now. And
Wow.
we have 3 amazing boys, 2 in high school, 1 in middle school. And I'm an architect and run an architectural business in Santa Barbara with about 15 folks and 3 other partners. And so life is busy and challenging and amazing all at the same time.
So cool. Yeah. And, you and I have run together in many different lanes, the city lane when I was working for the city. And I really appreciate your firm is exceptional, very well known in town. So congratulations on that success. And then you also went through the master's program recently, graduating from that 3-year process. So we walked together on that in coaching. And then you had the opportunity to go through 100X Life Challenge twice in that 3-year period. Tell us about the challenge itself and why it was important to you.
The challenge has been really first it's a challenge.
Right.
And I've been doing different challenges usually every year. You get your New Year's resolutions and such. But maybe you can have some success, but they tend to be focused. And then they're very self-oriented, and they tend to not last for too long. So as I'm always looking for challenges, when the opportunity for the first 100X Life came up, it just blew me away because it's the premise of it. And we're all a work in progress, right? And we have strengths and weaknesses, but to put it in the context of kind of going beyond yourself, because you perfect yourself and who you are, and you're one times, that's you. But when you follow the words of Jesus and integrate that, it's like that's that secret, that key to 100X, and it's the hardest thing you ever do, because it literally challenges not just who you think you are, which you can achieve greatness of who you are, but it opens your eyes to who does God and Spirit and Jesus want you to be. And that's the 100X part that just catapults you to so much more powerful than just what you can do on your own. So that's really the secret to it. And the simplicity of it, the easiness of it is simple. It's 55 words that Christ has given us, and all you need to do is practice that. The challenge is getting your body and your mind and your spirit in there. But the excitement is when the results start coming in and you start seeing the impact to, again, not you, because it really is about going beyond you. And that's the superpower of the 100X Life.
That is so cool. And what would you say is um, like an example of something you experienced? You're like, oh wow, I'm feeling the power of this. Can you think of one thing that really stood out to you, or an example?
I mean, there's many. For me, one of the biggest breakthrough ones, I know we're not talking about it today in detail, is um, I read it written down, is don't judge. Don't judge. So my nature is I'm very analytical, but one of the things I also see in one of my skills is also connectedness. I see where other people are just falling short left and right of who they are, what their skill set is, where they should be, what lane they should be in their life. And even in my business, I see I'm like the needle in the haystacks guy. And so that superpower of just seeing so clearly flaws in things, like you can look at a puzzle and you know what piece is missing. Um, it can really get you in trouble with personal relationships, right? And what I found is I really ended up at a judgmental place in my life where I would see people or meet people and would just feel disappointed. Like, why aren't they doing what they need to? And a lot of this just my closest relationship with my wife, right? And don't judge became really, really important. And the the 100x process, what it taught me was not to see people through my superpowers anymore, but really leverage God. How do you see these people? And that's where the breakthrough started. You love us. Your love is so abounding and so deep and beyond anything we can give or experience. But when you open your eyes and your heart and your spirit and your soul to just say, God, share with me how you love those people, it literally melted away the judgment that I have. So now when I walk around and I see people, even like homeless people on the street, which I would never talk to or relate to, now there's just no boundaries anymore because I
Wow.
see them, that judgment, those barriers of judgment, like where do they screw up to get themselves? And they can, you can just be so judgmental. They could just change the situation if they just worked at it. And it's like, that's not my place. My place is as run into people and come to people and meet them to approach them as a vessel of just God's love. And that's just that judgment. If that judgment's there, you can't. So that's one example of the 100x transformation. And it really is. It's not your power anymore. You're just opening your power for God to flow through it. And that's been a huge breakthrough
It
for
sounds
me.
like too, like that's become a freedom for you.
Oh, completely. Yeah. I mean, even just day to day with my employees, with my kids, with my wife, I'm so much more forgiving when people say things or do things. It's like, yeah, they're in their place. They have a struggle. There's an old pattern, whatever it is. It doesn't matter anymore. I don't have to figure it out anymore. My job isn't to figure it out and help them fix it. My job is just to come alongside, love and support. And sometimes it's just a smile and an encouragement. Other times, you can go deeper with people if that's what's needed. But the I don't have that. It's not holding me back anymore of how I feel about them. I feel like God's love, and we're all on a path, right? We're all on our journey, and it's not about being perfect. It's just pressing forward and embracing what He has for us.
That's so cool. So I want to chase down that in two ways. So it's really brilliant what you're suggesting. It's kind of opening up my mind toward what might be the obstacles to, in this case, keep my commandments. And what you're pointing out is that your strengths, your Gallup Strength Finder superpowers of, well, it was connecting and what else?
Connectedness, analytical, learner. Those can hinder me at times. Yeah.
So learner, analytical, connectedness were all your strengths were almost coming against you in that they were causing you to judge just because it became so obvious what the challenge was for them. Some of the things I've said to myself is like, can't you just get it together? Like, come on,
Yeah.
let's go. And so that's interesting for us to think about for other people because we all have different strengths.
Yeah.
So I love that concept for people listening that maybe it's your strengths that are actually misappropriated in terms of keeping his commandment that's actually not helping you or hijacking you in some way. So I think that's great to think about what are my strengths if I have a word that I'm really frustrated with, that I'm not able to put into practice, I can't keep the commandment. What are my strengths, and what is it about my strengths that might be hindering me? And then I want to ask you, so you have this progression where you've grown and now you're free because you're not judging. But here's what I wonder. What I wonder is that learner analytical connectedness is still a part of who you are.
Yeah.
So do you think that keeping his commandment not to judge refocused or re-aimed how you naturally address people? Or what do you think happened there?
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's not, it's just reapplying, the gifts you've been given. And I'm still doing that, but now it's in a more sensitive way to each person where they're at, because I'm not approaching it from a place of judgment and fixing, right? Which is my skill set, my ability to fix things. That the squeaky wheel, let's just put a little oil on it, right? It's not that easy. Sometimes that squeaky wheel is buried in a shroud that you can't reach, and people have to open up. And so that's the power of, God knows that. He knows if that squeaky wheel is how many layers do you have to break through before you can really get to that core issue? And that's that sensitivity. So other words, me and my best self will just go in and start ripping layers open, and it's very uncomfortable and disruptive for people. So it really is kind of tuning into that. When and how do you apply your strengths in a way that really is through that guidance, the guidance of the Spirit in the moment? And that's this the challenge and the power of the 100x life is in every moment. Like, what would Jesus do, right? You see on the bumper sticker, on the wristband, and everything else. But no, this actually internalizes it, and you actually pause for a moment and you go, how do I handle this, right?
That is so good. Because, and I hadn't even thought about this till you said this, but what would Jesus do? We got the 55 ways he would respond.
Yeah.
I mean, like you could ask yourself, what would Jesus do? But you might not actually know. But now we kind of have it more outlined for us, where we could actually indulge in naturally or automatically, because we've been reprogramming our minds, respond the way Jesus would. That is so rich. Okay. Well, let's go into Word of Jesus number 3. I'll read it. This is from John 14:21. He who has my commands and keeps them is the one who loves me. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and will disclose myself to him. Which is kind of interesting, because Jesus says this after he says, in a little while you won't see me, and then the world won't see me, but you will see me. And then he says this, if you keep my commands, you're the one who loves me, and my Father will love you. And then I'm going to disclose myself to him. It's, like we're waiting for the second coming, of course, right? But Jesus is saying, no, this is not the second coming. This is, I'm going to disclose myself to you if you're keeping my commandments. How did this impact you? And what are some of the thoughts that go through your mind when you hear that scripture, and how you were trying to put it into practice?
I mean, I'm just sitting here, and it's just stirring my soul. I mean, it's just so beautifully powerful. And what comes to me is, it's not one way. I mean, it's not transactional. Like, God loves me, and that means so many things to so many people. And so how do you show your love back to God? It's there. It's keep my commandments. And it's not a conditional thing. His love is always there. But the power is, what Christ said after. It's like, if you keep my commandments, I'll disclose myself to you.
Come on.
So that's the power. I mean, we're children of the Creator, and he just pours our love on us. It's always there if we're willing to receive it, right? But that power is that it becomes it's such a big thing, right? That part of it. And you can go through life and feel like, yeah, God's with me and loves me. That's amazing. But the power is on day to day. It becomes a day to day thing when you're pursuing his commandments. I mean, when he says he'll disclose himself to you, that's what we just said. What would Jesus do? And then that's in every moment of every day that you just want to pause and say, what would Jesus do? He says he'll disclose himself to you. And that's that opportunity for a situation comes up and you're like, yep, this is what I would do. I got it all figured out. And it would give me 1x result. Now, Jesus, like, what would you do? How would you approach the situation? Just take it to the next level, right? To just not just meet someone's expectation, but exceed it. Because he does. He will disclose not himself just to you, but to whatever situation you're in, to that person, because he knows their needs so much far deeper than we ever
Wow.
can.
Right.
So that as you were just, giving the word, and that's the depth of that just hit me, and the power of it. Because it's more than just a transactional thing, you do this and you'll be loved. And it's like so beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting because one of the things I write in the book, which, this is something I've wrestled with for years is and it's found in John 14. Do I obey Jesus because I love him, or do I love him because I obey him? And my conclusion has been through life is the answer is yes. It's whichever way to be connected with him, that's
Right.
the one. Sometimes we just love Jesus and we're full of his love. Just like now, you're kind of experiencing the power of the word. You're like, of course I'm going to obey. And then other times we're not feeling it, like our body's screaming. And so that's when we have to kind of obey, not for love's sake, but because of discipline's sake, so that we can actually experience his love. That is so cool. I wanted to draw attention to and get your thoughts on this, because this is something that's really been almost perplexing for me. I got to tell you, just to share, is like John 14, that chapter is the chapter for me. This is the place that's memorized. This is the place where I dwell in this, because it's just so powerful and transformative to me when I read these words. So interesting, after he says these words, okay, so whoever has my commandments and keeps them, he's the one who loves me. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love and disclose himself to him. Well, what's really interesting is the next words are actually Judas, and this is not Judas Iscariot. This is another disciple in the room in the upper room in the last hours of Jesus teaching them. And he says, "But Lord, why do you intend to show yourself to us and not the world?" Kind of interesting note, Ed. I kind of think that his strength is includer. His strength is includer, and Jesus is not including everybody. And Judas is like, how about everybody else? Like, what about everybody else? So another, back to your point on strengths. And then here's what he says. And these words just give me chills. He says, anyone who loves me will obey my teaching. My Father will love him. And we, Jesus and the Father, will come to them and make our home with them. So I want to hear what you think about that, but just kind of like where that just blows me away is this process of obedience and keeping his commandments is the process of them building their home in us. Well, what's your response to that?
Well, for many years in my Christian walk, at a very young age, I read and studied the Bible. And these are all amazing stories, and you take a lot from them, but it can feel a little old and tired. So this is how it comes to life. This is the transformation from reading something or having knowledge and then being able to apply it, whether it's professionally or personally. The Bible is, it's a document and there are words, but this is how you take those words and it becomes relevant right now. I mean, it's a historical document, but this is where it can impact your life today, right now, and take you places that are really where you were meant to go. I mean, this is about, we're here in this place, and God's given each of us our unique talents and abilities and strengths and everything else. How much are you going to actualize the plan? How much of your plan are you going to, make your plans for your life? And how much are you going to give him to dwell in you to take those plans to where he's designed it is so far beyond where we can. I mean, that's the power of it. That's the 100X lifestyle, but you got to obey, and the word obey can feel, it can have a lot of negative connotation to it. Right. But I love the way that you wrote it and the way that you phrased it. And even through Christ's words, it's like, you obey because you love me. So if you really come to that place, and it doesn't it feel so much easier to love someone who's alive than is dead, right?
Come on,
So
right?
so it really is. It's really that transformation is Christ still alive, and he will dwell in you if you give him the place to do that. And that's where it gets tough. That's the daily struggle. So that's really where the hard part of this challenge comes in.
Yeah, so it's going to be a practice. I love what you're saying in that we have to really indulge in the process. There's work. You're talking about 1X and then 100X. And just for our listeners to make sure that we're saying the same thing is we get 100X life from Jesus's parable of the sower. He's saying, put my words into practice. Some people will do that 30 times what was sown into them. So the word was sown in them. They'll multiply that 30, some 60, some 100X. And someone who is dishing 100X of the word would be someone who's really living it and then experiencing this abundant life that you're talking about, this transformation, like really comes through to me when you say, hey, on this one word of do not judge, I was putting that into practice and got so much freedom and abundant life. I think my question is, as you feel, let's go to that word, do not judge. It feels like you might be at a high multiplication rate on that one. How do you think that impacts the people around you? How do you think that, have you noticed people noticing and then responding?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I've always kind of had I have an intensity to everything I do because I just really, life is short, right? And you got to grab life by the horns, and I want everyone else to do the same. But not everyone else is in that place or wants to, right? So just using, reproducing that, not having that feel like you need to judge people or that I need to judge people. I'm really seeing them through, Christ's eyes it's just softened. So it's just so much more enjoyable for me and other people, that it's allowed me to be a lot more carefree and just more present too, right? Because in the back of your mind, if you're trying to analyze and fix everything that someone's saying or understand why it's wrong or different or whatever, you're not present. You're not
Right.
there with them. So I think those are the things that I've seen. It's just a lot more present.
That's really cool. And it sounds like the kind of the 100X fruit of anyone experiencing you keeping a commandment is, at the end of the day, love. It sounds to me like that's way more loving, like people would experience you as someone who loves them and is more for them when you're not judging.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, isn't that the point of it, to try to be vessels of love and get out of our own way? And so what I found, I mean, it's such a hard process, the 55 words. And I love how you've set it up where you're doing your assessment of each one. Where are you in that? And there's no right or wrong answer, first off. There really is no right or wrong answer.
That's so
And
good.
and as you go through the process, it's as you tackle anything hard in life, like start with the low-hanging fruit. Like, where, as I mentioned, for me, don't judge. Where have you had breakthrough? Where are you at that place that you're reproducing, right? One of the commands, or well along the way, and just dwell there for a while. I mean, maybe it's a week or a month where you just, you just build that one and you just thank God for it and keep pushing for breakthrough and just for him to reveal himself more and more. Where maybe you're further back in the other commands that it's going to take more work, right? and you just keep building, and then pick another one that you're so close to breakthrough on. And if you just don't know, I mean, that's the beauty of the 100x lifestyle. If you just don't know, just journal, ask God, ask Spirit,
So
ask
good.
Jesus, like, where do you want me to go today? I'm struggling. Be honest, I'm struggling with the commands, or this command. Help me through it, and just ask. This is how it comes to life. And the words in the Bible and in Christ's words just are there alive today. It's through this process, but you have to start there. You have to create that opportunity to obey. Just, I want to love you, Lord, and I want to obey you. And don't take on all 55 at once, right? I guess that's really what I'm saying. Just let him work with you, and guide you to where you need to be at that day, that week, that month, whatever it is. And then as you layer on the breakthroughs and it grows, it really just builds like a snowball. It just builds momentum, because of this, because it becomes freeing, and like you feel his love and his presence in so many different areas of your life, and it grows. And that's where it starts turning into to 100x.
I love what you're saying about how don't bite them all off at once. It's like, yeah, I think that's really good for people to hear, because the book is kind of unfair in that way, because I'm saying, as the premise of the book, that we haven't done this intentionally as a church, and that's my estimation, and maybe some are better than others. But then I'm dumping all 55 at once in one book, when it's going to take a lifetime. It's going to take months. One Word of Jesus for me took 3 years to put into practice. So I love that you're saying, hey, be free, double down on one or two, understand the rest, but we're going to really double down on one that we feel like we really can do. We're going to get in the gym, we're going to exercise. And then you mentioned the rating system, which is really, really cool. And I love that you say there's no wrong answers, because it's Jesus's rating system. Have you heard the word before? Are you just receiving it for the first time? Are you retaining? In other words, you're actually keeping it. I know the word. I'm familiar with it. I've written it down. I remember it. Or are you resisting the enemy's coming and trying to steal the word, kind of try to tell you the opposite? Are you in the gym? That would be the gym, resisting. Or have you already done well? You've got a faith muscle for that, but now you're focused on worldly things or other things. You just need to refocus, and then finally reproducing. So that rating system, I think that's great that you told us about that, because I think it's important. Some people might not know what that is. And we're just on day 3 of the words of Jesus, where we're using that rating system. Let's talk about self-control. One of the things I say in the book is that self-control is the most overlooked fruit of the Spirit. We kind of know the other ones, patience, kindness, but tell us about self-control. And is that possible for us to do that? Is it possible? Because keep your commandments sounds like it's going to take some self-control.
For me and where I am, I mean, this is the hardest part. It is, and this is really that mind gym. And I've noticed it's gotten harder over the last few years. I think, I mean, if you look at just the research on dopamine, right, and just what our current environment is, and that there's just so much like instant gratification everywhere.
So you're
And
saying self-control has gotten harder in the current day and age of distraction and dopamine, trying to let someone off.
it's physiological, right? It's become this thing. So you really kind of have to really flex that mind muscle to really be able to get that under control. That's the self-control is so hard, but it's possible. But you gotta dig in every day, because it's easy to go on autopilot and just doom scroll or whatever it is, that these dopamine hits that are just so easily available. And that's just in many ways we're just robbing ourselves of what the day has for us, right? You're kind of doing it the easy way, and that's it's not what we're here for. We're not for here to just enjoy all the pleasures of the world. And we're here to enjoy it. We're here to love it. I mean, this planet's here for us, and to enjoy relationship and the fruit of what's here. But are we doing it out of selfishness, or are we doing it? How do we get to that place of service to others? And that's where the mind gym comes in. And we don't just take what we've been given and just squander it, keep it to ourselves and squander it. So this is a hard one, the self-control part this is my mental gym every single day throughout the day. And you got to give yourself, you got to, it's about breaking old patterns too, right? You can go a little Tony Robbins on this too. But in order to break the old patterns, you got to create a new one, or you have to have one to replace it. And that's where the mental gym is the tool, right? Because you're working on replacing and using that self-control to build those new patterns that really push you into that lane, right? And create that new strength. So this is the tough one. This is the gym we're all going to be in, every day, but certainly for the 55 days of the program. So
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is self-control is possible, but it's really difficult, and you're going to incrementally grow. It's not like you're going to arrive tomorrow at, I am in control of myself. That actually is a progression where you're in the mind gym, as you say. You're going to need to give yourself grace. 2 steps forward, 1 step back is still forward, particularly if you repeat that again and again and again. So give yourself grace. And it's kind of gives me the image of, if I was in the gym, I wouldn't beat myself up because, for instance, yesterday I was doing chest and I like to get up to 140 on the dumbbells and didn't have it yesterday. I was kind of working a little bit on the 130s, 130, and so I did I beat myself up? No, I didn't beat myself up. I said, yeah, I'm just not having the best day. And maybe 3 days from now, when I repeat this chest exercise, I'm going to be right on it. I'll do the 140s and I'll be able to do more than I did before. So, I think that is the same thing for self-control. There may be a day where you just feel out of control and you don't beat yourself up, which would be joining the enemy. The enemy just wants to say, oh, yeah, you're full of it. You're no good. See, there you go again. The old Ed just showed up. And no, you got to let yourself understand you're in the gym, and this is just part of the growth process. Does that sound like that's true to you? Do you feel like that's the right way to talk about it?
Yeah, well, this is where the other word, put my words into practice, is so powerful. And, the exercise of journaling, right? Because through journaling, you can set your intention for the day, and then you can check in on that intention at the end of the day and add, where did I fall short? Where was I successful first? And where did I fall short? And then you can spend some time analyzing that. And then the next day, you pick up what you learned from the day before. This is the practice part, right? Like how many 3-pointers, does Curry practice to hit the success that he has? I mean, it's millions of shots these experts have taken to just hit it when it counts, right? And it's the same thing. You just got to put in the practice, and you're not going to. It takes time. So journaling is one of those great tools that, as you keep journaling, then you can go back and look at that, and you start to see the progression at that point too. You see your growth, and you see how you overcame challenges, and you can see how, maybe you're ready to move into a new word, right? At another practice. So those you do. It's a journey, and that practice is the right process.
So that's so cool. So it's kind of like, I like that you talked about journaling, and we haven't talked about journaling in this lane. I think it's really helpful to understand is that journaling can also become a way that we look back and we see the growth that we've actually had, which is a much more, it helps us to advance better when we look back at what we've gained versus looking forward at the crazy, like chasing the sunset. Like you said, we're not after perfect, although Jesus says be perfect. And the last word, 55, is be perfect, but chasing the sunset can get exhausting. But if we look back at what we've journaled and see how far we've come, that can give us life and enthusiasm. So I love that perspective. Let's talk about the 100X lifestyle. Let's talk about how we practically know we would be keeping Jesus' commandments. So here are some thoughts. You are committed to learning and continually watching over his commands, which it kind of sounds what you're saying, Ed, is that you've got to be, this is a practice. We keep coming back to this word. It's like, it's not like doctors are called experts. They're in a practice because there's new information coming all the time that they have to learn. And it's continually watching over Jesus' words that brings the transformation. Does that sound right for you and kind of how you've approached it?
Yeah. And it's, you got to apply grace, right? So it's just, sometimes it's 2 steps forwards, 1 step back. Sometimes it's 2 steps back. But you just got to reset every day and keep going, keep at it. Just got to keep at
going.
it. Yep.
Just keep going. Okay. And then next one is you search out Jesus' instructions and teaching as a source of life. In other words, you're not living unless you know what Jesus is saying to do, which is, again, back to your point, 100X life, what it really means.
Yeah.
And just on this note, I've done the searching for these. I've come up with 55. Some people come up with, like I said, less or more. But it's really helpful if you, listener, and I don't know if you've done this, Ed, I'd like to hear, take the time to go through the Gospels and actually find them for yourself. You know, you could use my guide as kind of a cheater, but you could also just find them on your own. That would be a way of keeping my commandments, is to actually discover the treasure in the gospel yourself. Does that resonate with you? Is that something that you've been able to do?
No, to be honest with you, I'm always looking for the hacks. So your book, I think it's so well. So, and I'm still just learning and growing in that's my place right now, and leveraging that. This will be my 3rd time moving into this, and I'm excited for which of the words are going to be the areas of growth. I don't know what they are at this point. Yeah, you put a plan together. I try to track where I am with each one, because I think it's important to know where you're at with things and be intentional about it. And then it's about just giving space to ask, Father, Son, and Spirit, like, where are we going to go? I got my plan, but where do you want to take me in this next journey? And that's the powerful part.
That's cool. And they really love questions like that. God is really enamored with our questions. That's a great strategy. Okay, so last one, you experience Jesus actively disclosing himself to you and directing your actions in real time. It kind of sounds like some of the things that you said in respect to do not judge, and that word that you feel like you've been able to keep. Like we're talking about keeping his commandments, you've been able to keep that one, and that's made a difference. And this is a nod to when Jesus says, if you keep my commands, my Father will love you and I will disclose myself to that person. Do you feel like this is something that's happened for you? Like how would you describe more disclosure of Jesus for you in what you've experienced as you've done the practice of keeping his commands?
Yeah, I think because I'm so in my head, and intentional about things, that really, when he speaks to you, it's in the heart. And so you start feeling heart-led. And that's, to me, that's it can be subtle and it can be quiet, but you just pause and interrogate. A lot of it has caused me to just slow down. One of the big things for me in TMP after 3 years is slow down. Because moving so fast was creating problems and issues in my relationships. But slowing down now creates space. It creates space for you to get out of your own way and for his discernment to come through.
That is so good. When you say that this process has slowed you down, the thing that I think about for me that slowed down, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, is the thankfulness exercise at the end of the day when we're laying down, we got our heads on the pillow, and then we're going back to the beginning of the day in our minds, thanking God for every single moment in detail that we can.
Yep.
that really has slowed time for me. And I know we're not the oldest guys in the room, but we're old. And when someone says, how are we going to kill time? I just freak out. I'm like, are you kidding? And you said it. Time, life is short. You said it in this interview. It's like, tell us about that thankfulness exercise at the end of the day. Did that slow time for you? How did that shift things for you? Why do you think it's important?
Because it does. It's that exercise to go back over the day, really think through what happened and why. And the thankfulness part is you learn to be, when things go wrong, right? Or you didn't hit your marks for the day or whatever else, through the practice and slowing down, I've learned to be thankful for what I didn't get right, because that's the learning process, failing forward, right? And that's in many ways, that's how we learn. And sometimes that's why when we screw up, that's his way of saying, slow down. Like if you're going to do the same thing tomorrow, you're going to end up at the same place. So that's the growth part, is you got to create that space to know why you failed. But failing is part of the practice. It's a huge part of it. But if you don't slow down and create that space for it, you won't recognize it, and you'll just keep beating your head against the wall or whatever it is. So, and to not be down on yourself, you got to thank God for the failures too, because that's just part of his grace, and you got to give that to yourself.
Wow. I love that. I think that that's so insightful for people, that we could do the thankfulness exercise. We could look back, and now instead of seeing a failure, I think what you're saying is you see a gym experience that you had some growth in. Even though it might look like failure, you were working out and you had an opportunity, and you can be thankful for that opportunity.
Right. Or at least you're activating your reticular system for the next day. Like, when this situation comes up tomorrow, I'm going to handle it different. And you're already pre-programming your brain to, and it's not easy. It may not happen. You may still mess up, but if you keep reminding yourself, the mind gym will win over time.
I love that. That's so cool. That brings us so much hope. And just in case our listeners don't know what you're referring to, the reticular activator is a part of our mind. It's part of God's design that we will see what we're focused on. So the conscious mind cannot comprehend everything we see, but the unconscious mind really sees almost everything. And then it draws your attention to those things on which you're focused. So what you're saying, Ed, is that in this thankfulness exercise, we're going over what happened, celebrating the gym experience, which might have looked like failure, but then also focusing our reticular activator on the next time that shows up, which will probably be quicker to respond the way we want to respond.
Absolutely.
So cool. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I'm sure our listeners were encouraged by it. And here we are on day 9. What advice would you give to yourself on day 9 for the first time you went through the challenge? What would you say to people?
I think we covered it. Embrace it.
Embrace it.
Embrace it, no matter where you're at, and be honest with your evaluation on where you're at in the process of each of the words. But be grateful. Be grateful those words are there, and we have an opportunity to improve on it. And like I said, if you're stuck, just ask him. Create space and ask him. And this is how we go from, once we get past the end of ourselves, a 1X life, and you want to move beyond that, this is the process. It's been really powerful. So be patient. Be patient with it. It is a practice.
Oh, good. I love that. Those are great final words. And thanks again, Ed, for being on here and encouraging people. And we will see you all tomorrow.
Thank you, Rob.
If you believe in the 100X Life movement, please follow and invite a friend by sharing this podcast. The 100X Life movement can also be found on Instagram and Facebook, and also at 100xlife.com. The 100X Life podcast was produced by Jenna D of Jenna D Services, with music by Ryan Ellis.
Was lost, but you found me here. Your fire burns inside, it will not disappear, because the Spirit